Welcome to Re-Embroidered Conversations. This series is rooted in the themes of my book, Hope Re-Embroidered, exploring identity, control, and what happens behind closed doors, and sometimes what continues long after. This is a space for honest conversations, the ones we don't have enough, uncomfortable, complex, and often unseen. Today, we are exploring spirituality, identity, and the self. Not the version we present, but the one we actually live with. The gap between the two, and what it takes to face it. Because in Hope Re-Embroidered, I explore how identity is not always something we choose. Sometimes it is shaped through survival, through silence, through what we have to become to get through. And sometimes spirituality becomes part of that, a way to understand, a way to escape, or a way to return to something real. Today's conversation is about that line, difference between healing and avoidance, between alignment and illusion, between who we believe we are and who we actually are underneath it all. I'm joined today by Kasim, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Hello, Kasim. So
Hello.
wonderful having you join me on this journey.
You're blessed to be here.
I am blessed as well. I am so excited because I am a strong believer of spirituality and healing and the connection. It's that soul, that divine, the strength that is within.
hmm
So please, Qasim, tell us, how did your journey into spirituality actually began and the idea of it, the moment something shifted for you?
Yeah. I guess, first of all, I'd like to preface something around the concept of spirituality, because being on this path for so long, the more spiritual I become, the more I realize how it's not separate from anything, that we are within spirit, So everybody is spiritual, everybody is on a spiritual path. We're all spiritual beings, But it's just the difference is some people are aware of it and some people are less aware. So I would say the best way to phrase the question would be, when did you become more aware, of the spiritual journey you're on, Because I think we're born into it, and even before we're born, we're spiritual beings having a human journey right now, But like so many of us, I think our spiritual journey as a human on earth, like we wake up usually through the catalyst of suffering, It's always when we're uncomfortable, that's when things tend to, when we're forced to look at places that we wouldn't look previously, If we're just coasting through life and everything is fine in love and light, quite often we don't grow in those circumstances, So for me, I think I would have to go back to around the birth of my first child, It was around 18 years ago when my first son was born. But then at that time, me and the son's mother had our own issues, and very quickly after the son was born, uh, my access to my son was taken away, And so it was through this where I started to really look inwards, and I suffered a little bit of depression, obviously grieving that I couldn't raise my son the way I had planned or I'd wanted to, or raise him in the way I thought we were going to raise him. And I remember going through a court battle for the first couple of years of his life just to try to get custody, to have some form of access to him. And it was after, I think, 2.5 to 3 years when I finally had shared custody and got access to my son. And it was when I first saw him, I saw this little boy who was like 2 to 3 years old, this beautiful little child looking at me, And it was really when he first started to look at me. I remember going home after I saw him for the first couple of hours, and then I had to go home. And I really started to question, like, I wonder what he sees when he sees me, Like, who does he see? Like, who am I to him? What do I represent? And then I started to look at myself as to like, um, I saw, I saw this as an opportunity for me to be the best version of myself, so he can see who I should be as a father. So that was really my catalyst. And I remember I opened up my laptop and I just wrote some words down. I was like almost like a journal. And three words came to me. It was like education, inspiration, and change. And I made a Facebook page at the time called Educate, Inspire, Change. And my intention was like, I don't know how much I'm going to have access to my son, but I know one day he'll be able to see what I've created here and he'll know what I stand for and he'll know my values and my beliefs, and what I stand for. So I started this Facebook page, and it was kind of from this Facebook page where I started to dive deeper into what is spirituality. I started to learn from different teachers online and sharing their content, and different people that would inspire me. I would share their content, and then over years this built into a bigger platform, where I eventually had millions of followers on this page, and it became the catalyst for my the next phase of my journey, which was like maybe 10 years later when I had a lot of followers. It was a business or a retreat in Costa Rica. My page caught the attention of them, and they said, we would love to invite you to Costa Rica to work with some ayahuasca. And so then this was another chapter that begun. This begun in 2019, which is when I started to work with plant medicine, and that was a real catalyst in my kind of spiritual awakening.
That's beautiful. Kasim, I just wonder something always on my mind. Why only pain connects us back to ourselves?
Uh-huh. It's a good question. Um, so when I think of pain, when I think of suffering, I think of when I think of love, when I think of God, I say to myself, love is a spectrum, and God is everything. That's what they say. God is everything. God is all that there is. There is nothing else other than God. So when we look at emotions like grief, like sadness, like pain, like the extreme shame, or whatever
Yeah,
the lower vibrational frequencies are, um, they're what we call it's like darkness to light, you know. So it's a spectrum, but there's actually no separation. So often in order for us to find God, we need to find him in the extreme ends. We can find him in the extreme bliss and the extreme joy, or we can find him in the extreme sadness and the extreme grief. And I think our human journeys, we're almost wired to find him in the grief, in the sadness, in the pain. I think it's just to do with our human evolution, where we are on the journey of evolution. Like if you think of our generation, we're the first generation that really has the privilege in thousands of years to really have the time, the access to the information, the ability to heal ourselves, the ability to really study all the different religions, all the different philosophies, all the different teachers. And so we are kind of the first generation in many generations that's had the ability. I know my parents didn't have the luxury to look at healing, to think about healing. I know their parents didn't have that luxury because they were in India and Pakistan and they were just trying to raise their family. They were maybe farming or trying to feed their family. So they were more in survival mode, maybe. And so I think we're the first generation that's able to really look at our pain and really sit with it. We have the luxury to, in a way. So it's
r-
kind of like, I think our growth is there. I wonder if that answers your question.
to be honest, it does. It's just such a shame that ego sometimes comes in the way of connection. I noticed also when people have this um, power in a sense, they think I am undefeatable, I am powerful, and they are living in the today in the materialistic world. But
Yeah.
once that gets fractured, somehow they become more gentle, they become more grounded. But some people are born this way. They don't need to have any dramatic events. So I just wonder the difference, and is there a reason for some humanity in a way that they lack that type of connection until only they discover it only when they feel weak. Weakness seems to connect us sometimes.
The best way I can describe this, um, when we are children, when we're born very pure. We're born innocent. All humans are born innocent. We're born pure, And then we're conditioned by our environment, by whatever conditions we were born into with the parents. And then quite often, what will happen in childhood is events will happen that we won't expect, or that will put us into the state of fight or flight, whether it's our mother ignoring us or our father harming us or something happening in the world that we don't understand. Why are people killing each other? Why are people hurting each other? Why do people kill animals? Like as a child, these are questions they ask probably at a very young age. And what happens is the ego initially is actually our protector. The ego is there to tell us that this is wrong and you deserve better. And it comes to protect us. It actually has a good initial intention. It's to protect us. For example, if your father is beating you as a child, your ego will say, I don't deserve this. This is not good. I need to protect myself from this. And so initially, it's there to protect us. I would imagine, if you can imagine like a beautiful bird, like a little bird, this represents our soul. And then imagine like a tiger, this represents our ego. So when we're born, we're just a beautiful little bird. We're very innocent. We're singing, we're playing, we're dancing. And then all of a sudden, somebody hits us, or somebody slaps us, or somebody shouts at us. And then all of a sudden, we don't know how to react. So the tiger comes forward and it gets angry, or it feels sad, and it wants to protect us. And initially, it's a beautiful thing because it's there to tell us that we deserve better, that we are worth more. But then what happens is, over an extended period of time, the ego starts to take over. It starts to control. It says to the little bird, you stay in the background. I'm going to stay here and protect you because you need me to protect you. And then over time, it becomes more, instead of a protector, it becomes like more of a tyrant, and it starts to take over. And then that's when we grow into adults. And so many people grow into adults just with this energy of protection, and the tiger is there. And they've even forgotten that they were once a little bird that was innocent and beautiful and kind and caring. And so for me, this is a beautiful analogy of the difference with the ego and the soul. And so many people grow up with this energy of the ego, and it just takes over. And it's this is the work I do with plant medicine, and this is, I guess, it's not to kill the ego, it's to almost thank the ego for what it's done, how it served us in our lifetime, but it's to then make a relationship with it and let it, that it doesn't need to take control anymore. And for me, this is my relationship to God, because only when we find God can we find a power or a force or a type of love that's strong enough that even the ego has to surrender to this frequency. And so, me as a man, when I say I'm here to serve God, all of a sudden my ego is now serving God. And so the ego surrenders. And people who pray, like when you see Muslims who pray all around the world, what do? They bow their head and they put their head on the floor. So they're in a state of surrender. And this is also a way of silencing the ego, of saying to the ego that there's something greater than us, and we must surrender to this. And this is an energy of humility. And I think this, for me, is the only way in which the ego can truly coexist in harmony with humanity. Because if we're not surrendering to God, then the ego is always going to find a way to be one step ahead. Even the so-called spiritual ego, we have gurus in the world, we have spiritual teachers in the world, and even they can become corrupt, even they can become misleading, because the ego will always find a way. And unless you're devoted to your practice and devoted to your prayer and devoted to humbling yourself consistently, and then this is where the ego can work to the benefit of humanity instead of to the detriment. And right now, the whole world is run by men who are being led by their ego. This is the reason for all the wars in the world. They're just little children that didn't grow up.
Is it arrogance? So when does ego become arrogance?
I mean, I think it's that what I said earlier, when the ego comes to protect you. So initially,
Oh,
it's protecting you, but then at some point along the journey, there's a tipping point, and it's not like any one moment. It's probably very gradual over time, where it just naturally becomes a tyrant instead of becoming a protector.
yeah,
It's like having a controlling husband or a partner. In the beginning, they want to protect you from harm, but then after a while, it becomes controlling behavior and manipulative behavior. And it's a
yeah.
fine line between what's protective and what's manipulation and controlling. And I think it's a gray area. It's a fine line. And that's where we have to have our discernment and have our that's why we have to cultivate self-awareness and self-realization. That's why it's important to meditate. It's important to look within, to really look at our shadows, because only when we look at our shadows can we realize, oh, maybe I'm controlling, maybe I'm manipulating, maybe I'm not protecting, you
There's
know,
so
and
layers. It feels like we have so many layers to explore and peel off. And I want to share something with you I experienced in the past, and I still feel it's within me. I carried a lot of pain. I've experienced a lot of pain, and I feel like I have an inner flame. I feel it in my chest. I can see it, and it carries me when I cannot carry myself. It does show in my creativity and how I express myself, in my writing. It is what keeps me and kept me alive. And I have always questioned it if it was something spiritual, something psychological, or something shaped through experience. And why some people seem to access that so strongly, while
Mhm,
others do not.
mhm. So yeah, I mean, there's many words for this people have used over the years. A popular one and one that I connect to is the Holy Spirit, and it's almost the energy of the element of fire. It's like we all have a fire within us. And when we think about the element of fire, the fire wouldn't exist without the sun. The sun is burning in in space, and without the sun, we don't get to exist. It's almost like for millions of years, people would often worship the sun, because they would say the sun is what gives us all life. And the sun is only a small star in our solar system. Then there's bigger suns in the galaxy, and then there's even bigger suns in the universe. And there's meant to be a one central sun in the middle of the universe that's powering all the other suns, all the other galaxies. And we may refer to this as God, as source. And I think that we all have a connection to this because this is where we all come from, and it's where we're all going to return to eventually. Whether we call it God or the universe, Shiva or Allah or whatever you wish to call this, it's a life force and it exists within all of us. And I talk about this with my work. I talk about activation, when a human becomes activated to their purpose, to who they are, it ignites a flame within them. It's a passion. It's when you align your mind, your body, and your spirit, all of a sudden you're aligned and you become a channel for the divine. And that's when the Holy Spirit becomes activated. And that's when you start to share your gifts in a way that's going to benefit humanity, in a way that's going to benefit others. Because I feel this is why we are here. Human beings, we are spiritual beings that were eternal in a way, and we chose to be born on earth as a human soul. And then we forget when we come to earth, because I am of the belief that earth is a school. It's literally like a school. Like we talk about micro to macro, the fractal energy of the universe. So when we look at the way we live, look at how society is structured. There is education, there's nursery, there's school, there's college, university, and there's a hierarchy. And it's
Mhm.
kind of like interesting how humans automatically go into this way of being, that we have to go through a system of initiation, of development, until we eventually reach a level where we can be a master or a professor or a doctor or a teacher or a guide. And it's the same with our soul's journey. We are on this human energy, we're like this, evolving, but on our soul, we're also evolving as well. And so many of us chose to come to Earth for a reason, because we wanted to learn lessons here and we wanted to graduate by learning these lessons. And the only way we can learn the lessons is by forgetting who we are. We have to forget God. We have to forget it all. And then through suffering or with the pain that we're talking about, that's the only way we can remember. We say, oh, now I remember. And think of the word remember, yeah? So when I say the word dismember, what does dismember mean? When we take the limbs off somebody, when so to remember is to put everything back together again. It's not just your physical body, it's your spiritual body, your emotional body, your mental body, it's your ancestors, it's your descendants, it's to remember. And so everything, you become whole again. And it's from this space of wholeness that we get to live, I feel, our highest purpose, our highest timeline. And for me, this is why we're here on earth, is to reach this level of connection to source, so that when eventually our body expires and we leave the body, we can continue the journey because we have graduated. We've learned what we're here to do. And I'm of this understanding. And I want to say something that even although I'm sharing this stuff, this is my truth. I'm not saying the truth is absolute. Every soul is completely unique and different, and I want to honor everyone's kind of philosophies and ways of thinking. But for me, this is what aligns to my heart. And I tend to work with people that align to this same kind of frequency of truth, because for me, truth is a feeling. The same way, if I say to you, I love my mother, and I know you love your mother, or I love my children, we can't prove this scientifically. It's just a feeling, you know? It's the language of the heart. And for me, God is the same. It's not something we can prove with the mind or I can
The,
talk about. It's just a
mm,
feeling of the heart.
the feeling. I just wonder why some people, right? For example, they turn pain into a lesson and strength and power and change. And some people, unfortunately, through pain, they give up. Do you think that's inner strength? Is it a gift? Individual people, some people they just cannot hold on to life, and some people they learn and they grow and they actually find the reason they are on this earth,
Yeah. Yeah.
purpose. So I just wonder why some can achieve their mission and some cannot.
Hmm. I think when we talk about surrender to God, the reason we surrender to God is because I don't try to say and we can't understand God with the mind. We can only say it's a great mystery that's beyond our capacity to understand. That's why we close our eyes. That's why we meditate in the silence, because there's some things we're not meant to know. But what I do know is I know that God knows. So I trust that God has a plan for all souls. All beings are His children, you know. And so I know that God's love is so infinite, it's beyond our capacity to understand. Like we are able to feel loved within our human capacity. And even that is beautiful and amazing. But if we can think about God and if we think God is infinite and beyond our imagination, God's capacity for love is beyond. So I trust that any soul, and I felt this in my family because there's been suicide has existed in my own family. You know, I felt this where my a member of my family took his own life. You know, and
Re-
so I
my-
understand this intimately, you know, and I trust that God's plan is better than our plan, you know. So my family member who took his life, he's somewhere on his soul's journey, you know. And in this human experience, maybe his lesson was to teach us something. So he took his life, and all of a sudden, all his brothers, all his sisters, all his nephews, all his nieces are grieving, and we're all praying for him, and we're all grieving. And then all of a sudden, through the grief, some of us are growing, some of us are learning, some of us are healing because he made a decision to take his own life. So we can't say that, oh, he was weak or he was strong or he did something wrong or bad because God has a plan, you know? And maybe through his suicide, maybe all of a sudden I became stronger. All of a sudden I won't commit suicide because I've learned from him now to find my strengths. I don't want to make the same mistake he made. So
Exactly.
in a way, he's my teacher,
Hmm. Hmm.
if that
I'm
makes
sorry.
sense. So there's no right or wrong, if that makes sense, you know?
There's right and no wrong. And I think that's why my book, Kasim, I want to tell you in Hope Re-Embroidered, I explore themes of suicide, of the how pain can turn into destruction, inner destruction. It feels painful to even feel it at times,
Mhm.
that the only way out, it feels potentially taking your own life. So I just want to ask you, I want to explore something in my book. Just um I explore the gap between who we present to the world and what we are actually experiencing internally. Why there is a constant struggle to be ourselves, to show who we are. We constantly hide it and secure it and lock it up. There's such a gap between what you see but and what we feel.
Mhm. Yeah, good. That's a good question. So earlier on, I think I mentioned the word shadow, you know, around shadow work. And this is one of the most important parts, or if not the most important part of the spiritual journey of awakening and self-realization, is to see our own shadows. So, like I said earlier, we're children, we're born pure, we're born innocent, you know, and then we are conditioned by our society. We're even given a name, we're given a religion, we're told whether we should eat meat or whether we shouldn't eat meat. So everything is almost decided for us. And then
Mhm.
then we almost need to unlearn some of these things and really figure out who am I before I was told who I was? Who am I before I was given a name? Who am I before I was told I was a Muslim? You know, like who am I? And so there's a lot of things we need to look at within ourselves. And I think it's almost like we are born in a society, unfortunately, that isn't conducive to people born free of trauma. We're all almost carrying the trauma from our grandparents, from our ancestors, from our parents, from our mothers, our fathers, because there's been a lot of suffering in our generations, especially recently because of World War One, World War Two, all the famine, all the poverty, all the slavery, all the things that have happened in the recent history, you know? So I think we're a product of this. So we're almost born in this conditioned mindset of suffering, of pain, of something is wrong. And I think many of us are carrying the karmic DNA of our ancestors. And so we carry this within us. And so there's a lot of shadow work we need to do to recognize who are we really before my grandparents, my great-grandparents and my mother, father told me who I was, you know? And so it's about taking off the masks and recognizing, this is why I say to people, separation is the illusion that separates us from God. When we start to say, you are Muslim, you are Jewish, I am black, you are white, even woman, man, we start to create this labels and separation. But if I say, you are a child of God, and so am I a child of God, all of a sudden, it's like there's no separation here. We are the same. And I think this is where the shadows start to come out. And what we're looking at, I know the Palestine-Israel conflict is so big in the world right now, you know? It's this shadow of separation, of you are Jewish, I am Muslim, you are not, you are this, I am this, or you live there, I live here. This is what creates all the suffering in the world.
And that's
It's,
difficult to heal, Kasim. I feel it's not very accessible. We cannot access ourselves easily because there's constant fight to make ends meet, and
yeah,
then the economical pressure, and also the way to live is difficult. How can others find a way to
yeah,
heal, to stop? Because we are
yeah.
constant, even it's getting harder now.
Yeah. So I talk about the word so often. There's a there's healing and then there's liberation.
Mhm.
Liberation is when we free ourselves from the need to heal. There's a difference, you see. So healing is the beginning part where we start to want to heal ourselves, but then at some point, when does the healing end?
Doesn't it?
You, well, be careful with your words because if you say this, then it becomes true for you. So
It
the
does.
work,
It does end. The healing. You mean like
but
the healing that should? Yes, yes.
it's so what I say is the power of the mind, the power of our thoughts. You know, whatever we believe is true. If I say if I say there's heaven and there's hell and the devil exists and there's demons, it exists for me in my universe. But if I say no, everything is a child of God, everything is an expression of God, then all of a sudden I'm living in heaven in my mind, in my feeling. So likewise, if I say the healing never ends, the healing will never end. Or I could say, or I could say is I am a liberated child of God, and in this moment I love who I am. I love my life, and I'm bringing the frequency of heaven to here on earth. I am liberated from the suffering of my own thoughts. And this can be a frequency of liberation. Of course, healing may happen in life. Things might happen. Traumas might happen in my life. People will die around me. I will grieve. I will be sad. But this doesn't necessarily mean that something is wrong or that something needs to be fixed. This is the mindset that my work I try to work with people on is just to shift your mindset, you know, is to escape the hamster wheel of healing almost. So,
Yeah.
and it does require us to look at our shadows, but once we look at our shadows, we need to love them and we need to like accept them and love every part of ourselves. And only from this love can we accept them and can we release them, and then we become into a frequency of liberation. And that's when we get to enjoy life for what it truly is. Even the small details, even like waking up in the morning and seeing the sunrise, can become a beautiful experience because we're no longer trapped in the mind of the suffering of something is wrong. I need to heal. I need to be better. I need to fix this because that's what keeps us in the lower vibration, you know?
Do you know, you made me think, going back in the mind, you basically you create your own prison, your own,
Exactly.
and that makes me think of how easily it is for abusers to trap their victims. I explore domestic abuse in my book and how words are so powerful and it can imprison people. Just words, thoughts, fear. That is so true because once you overcome that, their words and their prison and fear, you feel this freedom, you know, and that's where they target how you should be thinking, what you should be thinking. And it's very, very difficult from your experience, people who are imprisoned by domestic abuse at the moment. How can they free their minds? How can they start? What is the best way to move forward or to free themselves? What path can
Mm,
they take?
mm. It's an interesting one, you know. Uh, I would say like to go to the source, you know, like in Chinese medicine, the difference with Western medicine and Chinese medicine or Western philosophy is Western philosophy is very good at like bandaging the problem, you know, like giving you medication or giving you therapy or like talking over, whereas Eastern medicine is very good at going to the source of the problem, going to the root, you know, where that comes from. And I feel like the root of all suffering is in our thoughts. So this is why so many traditions, ancient traditions, whether it's Buddhism, whether it's you know, Hinduism, even Islam, they really encourage meditation. They encourage to sit in silence. And when you sit in silence, you start to become the observer of your thoughts, and you start to recognize that I am not my thoughts. And it can be a very empowering energy when you no longer attach. Attachment is the root of all suffering, you know, but
Yeah.
even attachment to our thoughts. So it's when we recognize that, oh, I am not my thoughts. Like if I'm having a negative thought today, like a thought that wants to harm me or something, I want to harm myself. This is a thought, you know? If I can just step back from the thought and recognize, though, that thought is not me, that's something else from outside of me, I can let the thought go. And this is a feeling of liberation there. So I would say to people to cultivate practice in their life, whether it's meditation, whether it's introspection, whether it's sitting in nature, whether it's praying, even mantras are a big one. You know, mantras can, because often I work with mantras, you know, and often if I'm having thoughts that are intrusive thoughts or negative thoughts or thoughts that I know they're not serving me, you know, they're making me feel anxious or they're making me doubt myself or fear something, sometimes I will just start to sing a mantra. And then all of a sudden, I replace those thoughts with a mantra. It's like taking out a program and putting in another program. It's like
Yes.
we're a computer, you know. It's like our brain is like a computer, so it's like there are programs running all the time, and even subconscious ones are the hardest programs to take out because they're subconscious. You know, they've been put
Mhm.
there for by our family, by our
Yeah.
husband, by our you know, and so we need to become aware of the program and then think, how can I replace the program with another program, a better one? You know, take out the virus and put in something beautiful, like an affirmation or a mantra or even silence, like whatever it may be. So for me, this is the root is just to everything is in the mind, you know, like me and you, the version of me that you see exists only in your mind. Nobody else in the universe looks at me the way you do. So your mind is very powerful, and everything is within your mind. So there's a feeling of empowerment when you say, I am creating everything. Every human in my frequency is a projection of my consciousness. The way you look at your children, the way you look at your husband or your mother, only you look at them that way. Nobody else sees them this way. So it's to empower yourself and say, how do I perceive? My perception shapes my reality. So then it's to say, is your reality negative or positive? Is your reality dark or beautiful? It's your perception. So you can take off the sunglasses and put on a different pair of glasses and start to see everybody as a child of God. Even your abuser, you can start to say to your abuser or see them, you are my greatest teacher. You are my darkest angel. You were sent by God to bring me closer to God. And that's sometimes the people that hurt us the most give us the biggest gifts. And it's just the shift of perception from being a victim to saying, no, you empowered me. No, because of you, I am stronger. No, because of you, I am better. Not because of you, I am sad. Because of you, I am weaker. Because of you, I am lonely. No, it's how we look at the perception of it, you know. So I would give this advice to anybody that's suffering in this environment, you know, of to take back your power this way.
That was perfect. That is so beautiful. And it actually given me a sense of relief. Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, in Hope Re-Embroidered, I also explore how survival can shape our identity. Do you think spirituality, sorry, can actually become another layer people use to cope rather
Mhm.
to?
For sure, for sure. This is, remember earlier we spoke about the ego. So when I was younger, I wanted to have nice cars, I wanted to buy expensive clothes and to have beautiful girlfriends, and this was my ego leading me. And then now I'm more spiritual, so now I wear nice hats, and now I wear nice like jewelry, and now I want to drink ayahuasca and meditate more. And it's almost like the spiritual ego can also come into play. Like how often do you meditate, or how many books have you read? And it could be like I know more than you. I'm a teacher. I'm a guide. I'm a healer, and it's this energy of the ego. So I think spirituality can often, bypassing is the word, where some people can use spirituality to bypass the truth, because sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. Even me, like I've been on this journey for maybe 6 or 7 years of healing, and now I'm at the stage in my life where I'm a teacher and I'm helping others to heal, but I still need to continuously look at myself as well. I still need to do shadow work on myself to recognize sometimes what's my intention. Sometimes am I not seeing my own shadows sometimes, of I don't want to be, if somebody's paying me a lot of money, for example, sometimes the money can be a big temptation for people. What's your intention, to serve or to make money? This is another shadow. So it's always to check yourself. This is why I say daily practice is so important, because every morning to do gratitude, every night to pray, to humble yourself, to give thanks. It's a state of humility, where if you're in this constant state of humility, of gratitude, then it's very difficult for the ego to take over. So this is why it's a difference with devotion and discipline. So discipline is something you have to do. Devotion is something you love to do. You
Wow.
know, so if we can be devoted people, if we can be devoted to meditation, if we can be devoted to like taking care of our body, to eating good food, also the diet's very important. Like if we're eating rubbish, we're going to have rubbish thoughts. If we're not singing, if we're not moving the body, if we're not dancing sometimes, and our body gets stuck and the energy sticks get stuck. And we start to have bad thoughts. So it's like
Mhm.
daily movement, walk every day, stretch every day, do yoga every day, meditate, or whatever feels good for you, even if it's just dancing, or playing or laughing or singing, little things like a child, to be
Yeah.
more childlike. And this keeps our childlike innocence. And when we can stay close to the childlike innocence, then the ego doesn't have the chance to take over. And so spirituality is a strong one because the ego is always one step ahead. And so in order for us to try to keep the ego in check is through two things: childlike innocence, but also service. How am I serving others? Like when I'm creating videos, when you're making your book, you're not thinking about how much money can I make. You're thinking, how can this book benefit humanity? You know?
The calling. I feel my journey has a huge purpose. Since I was very young, I always felt my dreams were different. I felt a different connection to people, to the world around me. I always seen the positive in everything. I always had this passion. So everything I do, I feel it's a calling for me, and there's a purpose for it, and there's a reason. There's things that people don't want to talk about, and there's things that you have to talk about. And I feel this is a must. This is something that will make a lot of people uncomfortable. And unfortunately, that's the part that needs to wake up. It's numb. We all had that part. I experienced it for many years, that numbness, suppression, not knowing, not wanting to confront myself, to the point that when I started to carry out the work, I became sick. I felt the illness. My immune system became weak and weaker. And I realized it is actually harder than the actual pain to do the work of of, of reclaiming yourself.
Yeah. You have to feel it to heal it, they say.
It's painful. Avoiding it is so much easier. And
Hmm.
you skip the pain, you numb the pain, you distract yourself. And
Yeah.
I just wonder if you ever realized that something you called healing was actually avoidance.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, avoidance is, I think what we said earlier about spiritual bypassing, like avoidance is a big thing. You know, people tend to avoid discomfort. Anything that makes them uncomfortable, we naturally like to avoid this. Nobody likes to be uncomfortable, you know. But in discomfort is where the growth is. It's when we step outside of our comfort zone. That's usually when we grow. In any capacity, even if it's going to the gym and exercising, if you don't get uncomfortable, you're not going to grow, you know. Or if you go running, if you don't break a sweat, it's not going to benefit you too much, you know. Or so everything is stepping outside your comfort zone. And the same applies to our emotions, you know. If there's emotions that we don't like, I'm a man, you know, and normally we're conditioned to think it's crying is weakness. You know, that if it's a sign of weakness, and maybe for thousands of years, it was a sign of weakness. Maybe when we were, you know, living in villages and we had to protect ourselves from other villages from dying, we had to be strong, you know, and we couldn't be seen to be weak. But now we have to reprogram this. That actually tears are a sign of strength. A man's capacity to cry, a man's capacity to express his emotions. It means he's a strong man. It means he won't inflict that same pain onto his wife, onto his children, because any man who's hurting others is usually just somebody who's already deeply hurt within themselves, you know. So I
Mhm.
think what you're talking about is beautiful because most men avoid their feelings, not just men, women too. You know, they avoid their feelings, they avoid their emotions because it's conditioned within them to think this is dangerous, and it maybe isn't even conditioned by society. Sometimes it can just be ingrained into their psyche. You know, it's like generational almost, and we're having to break this generational kind of karmic DNA almost. You know, by allowing ourselves to feel for the first time. You know, and it's okay to feel your feelings now. And I think we have the luxury in this lifetime to do that, to be honest, you know, like we have the capacity where we're not in danger. You know, maybe our bodies, you mentioned your body, our body is very disconnected from our minds these days. You know, most people they're not they're not embodied is the word. It's disembodied people, you know. When it comes to sex, this is a big one. So many men in the world are addicted to pornography. This means they are disembodied. It means they're not connected to their body. They can't feel their feelings, you know. So they have to give it away. And this causes problems in families, in relationships. And this is why so many people are confused about sexuality and what does pleasure actually mean. Not many people understand what sex is actually for. They have this a very distorted, you know, understanding of what sex actually is. It's a very sacred act. It's a ceremonial practice from which life can be born, you know. But society is very distorted around this, you know. And for me, this is, I don't know how we're automatically going on to this, but it's like one of the number one big problems in the world today. It's most men in the world and women, they haven't looked at the true nature of sexuality. And this is why the whole world is a bit distorted. This is why there's so much war and so much divorce rates and so much abuse. It's just because we've totally distorted sex. Everyone feels shame, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Islam, whatever religion, is shame. From the day you're born, it's shame. You know, we don't talk about this, we don't do this, we don't show this, and all of a sudden we're programmed to think shame, shame. Now, shame is one of the lowest vibrations known on earth. You know, it's one of the lowest frequencies. We have grief, we have sadness, but shame is one of the lowest. If you think about if you imagine a child in a playground who could be a very beautiful, innocent child, if somebody pulls that child's pants down and shames him in the middle of the classroom, that child could turn into a murderer instantly, just from that feeling of shame, you know, of extreme shame. It's a very strong emotion, you know.
Wow.
So if you think about that, most of the world is running on a subtle vibration of shame. Most people, even good people, even loving people, they have a very subtle vibration of shame underneath them, you know, where we don't want to talk about sexuality. We don't want to talk about this with our children or educate them in a healthy way. So this is what a big reason for the hope. I think the wars in the world are a lot to do with this. You know, most of the men are just men that haven't healed themselves sexually. So this is all they know. They only know how to hurt people, how to abuse people. They don't know how to love people.
Kasim, this is so spot on. You know, I actually mentioned porn addiction in my book. Honestly, yes, I do mention in my book issues in a marriage, in porn and addiction. Exactly. Thank you for mentioning this. It's actually relevant to my book as well.
Great.
And it's amazing and sad that there's a lot of unexplored themes and also men don't really feel comfortable in exploring them.
Mhm.
I think that is a huge issue in marriages, a failure in relationship, in there's so many people who end up alone. They can't have partners. They're struggling to be in another company. It's just being disconnected. Do you feel the media has a huge part in this, where they want us to be a nation, a distracted nation, where we are constantly, they're
Uh,
feeding us with what direction? They're basically
yeah,
pos- repositioning us. Every time we're trying to
yeah.
evolve, they're putting us back into
Mhm.
that place where, like you said, pornography, trends, beauty, filters, what the
Yeah,
world is all about.
yeah. I think it comes down to our disconnection, first of all, from God, you know. So when we're disconnected from God, what happens? We're looking to replace God with something, whether it's money, fame, power. And then this is what creates a society. So the capitalist corporate world is designed around this. Everyone is chasing the fame, the power, and the money, and the control, basically. Whereas when you find God, it's the opposite. When I say we surrender to God, it's I surrender control completely. I trust in God's plan. And this is the opposite of what society is built on. It's the opposite. It's nobody believes in God, so they almost have to become the God of their own lives. And this requires them. So this is why these men are the ones that build the biggest media companies, that grow the biggest empires, the owners of all the biggest tech companies in the world, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or Google or Amazon. These are all run by men, you know, that are seeking control and power. And so this is what ends up filtering down to society in every level through the music we listen to, the films we watch, the media we consume, even on TikTok now, what our children are like being subjected to every day. It's a very distorted um, uh, perception of reality. So this is why I'm so devoted to what I do, because it's just to liberate people from the illusion. The opposite of love is not fear. The opposite of love is illusion. It's because everything is love. And so whatever is not love is illusion. If something makes you feel scared or anxious, it's not of God. It's illusion. And illusion is what creates the problems in society. So when we're looking at, women and sexualizing them, this is illusion. We should be raising women as goddesses and honoring them and really worshiping them and providing for them and protecting them, not selling them for sex. It's the opposite we're doing. You understand? And so I think this is what society is doing. Women who become famous in the media and little girls are looking up to them as like sexual examples of what to be. So I think for this is why I'm very mindful with what I listen to, what I watch, what I consume, even Netflix. I used to watch Netflix more. Now I'm watching it a lot less, if ever. I'll maybe watch documentaries, but anything else, there's subtle like programming in everything that we're listening to, even the music. All music is a mantra. We say mantras and as if it's separate from music, but no, everything is a mantra.
Even
So what is it?
Kasim,
Say again.
even conversations are
For
meant
sure. Whatever we're listening to, yeah. Even at home with your friends, what are your friends talking about?
to talk. Yes, because I've noticed, even if you sit in a group that constantly gossips,
Exactly.
groups that intellectual and wants to discuss how we can change the world and what steps to take. Even in these conversations, they can be so empowering. For example, I am empowered by having this conversation with you.
Mhm,
In my book,
mhm.
there's strong focus on reclaiming your narrative. How does spirituality influence the way someone understands and tells their own story?
Sure. I guess this brings me into the word of authenticity. What does it mean to express yourself truly authentically, And I think when we do the shadow work, when we look at ourselves, when we drop the masks and we let go of the illusions and the self-limiting beliefs and the thoughts that don't belong to us, then what's left? Then what you're left with is an authentic expression of who you are. That's when people become authors or musicians or artists, because they start to express themselves authentically, and people tend to resonate with authentic people, and they resonate with artists that are able to touch them in places they've never been touched before. So this is a authentic behavior. So for me, true spirituality, when you start to realize who you are, like even for me now talking to you, or I make content online. I remember years ago when I used to make videos, it would take me hours, like thinking about the topic, editing the video, like taking 20 takes to get the right one. But now in the last like year, 6 months, 3 months, I've been developing to a degree where I just have to go on the camera and I just have to speak from my heart, and I don't have to rehearse. I don't have to overthink or edit or change. I can just flow. And so I feel like finally in my life, I've came to a stage where I'm able to express myself authentically because I know who I am. And when you know who you are, you don't need to think so much. You see, if somebody is lying, if somebody is lying, they need to think about the lie. But if somebody's telling the truth, they don't need to think about the truth. It's just the truth. So I
That
feel like this. So when you can tell when someone is connected to their truth because they just flow and they just speak from the heart rather
yeah,
than thinking all the time, looking up and down. Let me think. Let me think. Then it's like, why are you thinking so much? Like come from your heart.
comes from your heart, from your soul. It's
Hmm.
I believe the best form of art is lived experience.
Hmm.
Talking about inner work, what does it look like to you beyond words, concepts, or labels?
True inner work is who are you when nobody's watching? Like who are you when no one's there? Like what are your thoughts then? Like because this is the true self love. Like do you love yourself truly? Even when you're alone, when you're lonely or sad, how do you take care of yourself in those moments? Are you like distracting yourself? Are you numbing yourself? Are you not having the thoughts? Are you not sitting in your pain? Are you avoiding yourself? Whatever it might be. And I think that's a true inner work. Everybody can show up in a ceremony. Everyone can come to a group circle and talk and be amazing. But the real ceremony is life. The real ceremony is when you're going to bed every night, when you're waking up every morning in the mundane. It's like this is a true inner work for me, is who are you when no one's there, when no one's watching you, because it's just you and God in those moments. And that's the person that God really sees and connects to, because in that moment you got nobody to impress, no one to show off to. And so for me, inner work is this. It's like authenticity. It's like loving yourself, caring for yourself. And so many of us, so many of our wounds come from our mother and our fathers. And so it's like where maybe they didn't have the tools to take care of us the way we are aware of now. So now we have to become our own mother and our own father. So it's like learning to be silent when you should be silent, learning to sit in your pain, learning to take when to take action. I always say this quote that I love is learn to move the way love makes you move. So if you're feeling sad and you're feeling painful, should you just sit in the pain and be silent and let yourself cry? That's maybe love is asking you to do that. Or another time, maybe you want to go for a walk to the park and be in nature, and love is taking you that direction to be in nature. Move that way. Or if love wants you to call a friend or call somebody or do a prayer, move that direction. But it's always to check in with yourself and to move in that way. You know, and doesn't always need to take action. It can just be to sit in your pain. This is something I'm learning as a man, that we are always thinking we have to do something. Do this, and prove to myself that I'm a good man. But sometimes it's just about doing nothing and just being with yourself, and that can be enough. And so for me, like this is true inner work, of like just the art of being human. What does that mean to you? Just to be and nothing else. No pressure, no stress, none of the thoughts. Just allow yourself to be just like a child. As when you if you leave a child in a room and you watch the child and observe it for long enough, the child is just being a child. They're not overthinking. They're not wondering, what should I do next? What should I do tomorrow? I've got this bills to pay tomorrow. I need to call my friend tomorrow. No, they're just creating. They're just lying down, rolling around, making funny noises, whatever comes to them naturally. Maybe they start to cry. Maybe they feel lonely. Maybe they feel sad, whatever they feel. And I think this is our greatest teachers, is our children. Like we've forgotten about our children. They come from God. They were just born a few years ago. So they came
Yeah.
from God and they still carry that innocence. And then here we are, adults, thinking we know better.
Yes.
Like, and we're stuck in our pain. We're
Yes.
suffering, we have depression, we have anxiety, and we're trying to teach our children.
So much
It's like,
going on, so much going on. I have a question. It just crossed my mind while you're speaking. Do you think victims should forgive their perpetrators?
Uh-huh. Powerful question, and this can be a very triggering one for many people, because uh, I, but I would say, like, I look at the great teachers, Yeshua, like Isa, Jesus, and his example, of like compassion. What does it mean to have compassion? What does it mean to forgive your enemy, to love your neighbor, to forgive your enemy, to love your enemy? And it's recognizing that everybody is a child of God, So when I say to forgive your abuser or forgive your perpetrator, it's not really to forgive them. It's to forgive yourself for allowing that to happen to you. It's more for yourself, So I would say, simply said, I would say yes, we should forgive, but it's not so simple as forgive them. It's actually forgive yourself because you allowed that to happen to yourself. You attracted that into your life. In some way, you manifested this in some way. You take some accountability, take some responsibility, and when you forgive them, actually, what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to forgive yourself. It's not for them; it's for you.
Thank you for sharing that, because that is a question I'm sure it's on a lot of people's mind, wondering, do we forgive them? But that's
Mhm.
true because, you want to move on, you want to let go, and then we can carry guilt. Would you say guilt is similar to shame?
Sure, it's in a similar bracket, carrying guilt and shame, very low frequencies, And so if you're carrying that with you and you refuse to let it go, this is the thing. It's just about don't hold on to anything that's not serving you, let go of whatever doesn't serve you. It's as simple as this. If somebody hurt me once and then I hold on to that pain for the rest of my life, it's as if they're punching me every day for the rest of my life, you know? It's
Yeah.
like, just let it go, and then all of a sudden, I'm no longer getting punched every day. I'm not allowing that person to live in my mind rent free,
How
We
can
need to
that? How can we heal that wound? Do you think
uh,
there's a possibility to overcome that?
mm. What I say to people is, the only way we can only love others or forgive others to the same degree with which we love ourselves or forgive ourselves. That's so so we must practice deep self-love, deep self-forgiveness, deep compassion for the self. And only to that degree can I love somebody else the same. So if I truly love my mother, if I truly love my children or my partner, I must practice self-love because any part of me that I don't love, I'm going to project that onto them, you
Yeah.
know?
Yes.
So so it goes both ways, even for the people you love the most. Never mind the people that have hurt you the most. It goes both ways, So I say to people, just focus on yourself. Don't focus on other people. Recognize like you are the center of your universe. So your thoughts and your feelings and your perception shapes your reality. So it's really the self, It's like focus on the self and let everything else go. That's all you can. You can't control anybody else, and you're never going to be able to control anything else other than your reaction or how you respond. That's all you can control. And that's why I also talk about the breath a lot, because our breath is such an important tool, that so many people forget about. It's the one thing we can truly control. You
Yeah.
know, if we're having anxiety or stress, all of a sudden, if we want to, we can slow down, take a deep inhale and slowly exhale, and deep inhale and slowly exhale, and slowly we can regulate our own nervous system. This is self-love, you know? So it's like just take care of what you can control, and all you can really control is your breath, to be honest. You know,
Yes. Mm.
and then once you control the breath, things happen. Like if I'm angry, for example, and we're having an argument, instead of reacting and screaming at you, I can take a few deep breaths and go, and then I can respond. And all of a sudden, it doesn't become an argument anymore. Then it becomes a conversation. And then if this happens in my life all the time with everyone I speak to, all of a sudden, I'm no longer in conflict with anybody because I'm not reacting, I'm responding. So I think this is an important tool, is to come back to your breath. It's the source of all that is. We're born. We take an inhale is the first thing we do when we're born. And the last thing we do when we die is we take an exhale. So you think about your entire human journey is a breath. And so it's like the quality of your breath defines the quality of your life. So most of us are living through life. We're not even thinking about our breath. We're not even conscious of it. You know?
So that is so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true. I'm even counting my breaths right now as we speak. I'm thinking, oh yeah, you know. everything around us, gifts, beautiful. We're very lucky. There's so much beauty in everything. Now, I would like to ask you, how do you stay grounded in reality while exploring deeper spiritual ideas and healing and helping others and listening to others?
Yeah, I mean, I like the word you use, grounded, because when we think of nature, we look at trees, and the deeper the roots are of that tree, the stronger the tree is, and nobody can pull the tree or break the tree, and the taller it grows. So, like humans, I would say we're the same, and we have energy centers in our body, So we have the chakras, we have all the different energy centers. So when we look at the lower chakras, the root chakra, the sacral chakra, these are our lower energy centers. A lot of that is where our sexual energy is stored, And so as men or women, when we start to take care of this part of our energy, it starts to create a stronger root, And then all of a sudden, things that happen to us up here, or people talking to us, people shouting at us, it doesn't affect us so much because we're strong, we're like a tree. So this is the same with men, If you imagine a man, he could have somebody gives him £1 million, but he doesn't have a strong root chakra. What will he do with the money? He'll blow it on women, blow it on gambling, blow it on drugs, because all of a sudden it exposes his weakness, Whereas if a man has is strong practice with he's like retaining his semen, he's praying every day, he's practicing his breath work every day, he's strong in his root chakra, then all of a sudden you can give him a lot of money. Nothing's going to change. He'll
Is that
just have more.
you say, Kasim?
Say
Discipline.
again.
Would you say this is discipline?
Yeah, discipline or devotion, however you want to look at it, But yes,
Yes.
exactly, it's so important, So there's something here important. So when we talk about the laws, So we talk about God. There are certain laws, in the universe. The law of vibration, the law of frequency, the law of polarity, masculine, feminine, man, woman, child. These are laws which God created. But I would even go further. I would say God didn't create the law. I would say God is those laws. Like God is the very vibration of those laws. So as humans, when we can live in alignment to the laws of God, take care of your neighbor, take care of your body, treat everybody with compassion, treat people with kindness, love yourself, love your mother, love your father, all those basic things, fundamentals that creates a beautiful human, that creates a beautiful society. These are laws. So that requires a level of devotion and discipline to obey those laws. And it's not like it should be something that's because we think of law as the police or education system or a prison system. And this is a distortion of the law, where it's like punishment. But God is not a punishing God, God is a loving God. So when we start to love ourselves and obey the laws from love, like you love to brush your teeth, you love to have a shower. Why? Because it's programmed in that it's good to clean yourself and it feels good, So these are some laws that we do every day and we don't think about them, So
We don't.
so also we could meditate in the same way we have a shower. It's cleansing your mind, It's like the same frequency or mantras or singing or dancing. It's cleansing your soul. The same way brushing your teeth is cleaning your teeth. And you can say, oh, I enjoy dancing, so I'm going to dance every day. It could be a part of your practice that you just do the same way you have a shower every day because it feels good, And so it's about when you connect to God, it doesn't need to be a chore. It can be a devotion, and life can become play. Everything can be play, like a child.
Yeah.
You can enjoy everything. The way you eat your food, it can be like a joyful moment, of nourishing yourself and a prayer and a blessing, enjoying the taste and being present with it. And it can be like a whole ceremony, Or you can just stuff your face with a McDonald's and not think about it. It's up.
Exactly.
It's your choice,
Depends how much you love yourself.
Exactly.
Kasim,
Um,
where can
yeah.
people find you?
Beautiful. So yeah, I mean, I have quite an active social media presence.
Mhm.
I have a Instagram page. I have a TikTok page that I just started a while ago. But on Instagram, I have a page called We Are in Harmony, and it's funny because today I'm about to have 100,000 followers today. So it's a day for celebration for me. So yeah, people can find me on Instagram and videos all over Instagram. I'm sure they'll find me. I have another page called Divine Harmonic Intelligence on Instagram as well. But yeah, that's the best place to find me.
I'll make sure I'll put all the links
Sure.
on the description. This has been so inspiring and such a beautiful conversation. I want to say thank you for being
Yeah.
part of this conversation.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for creating the space, and thank you for aligning to your purpose and your path, and for being an embodied example of what it means to be a child of God, somebody who's living with passion and purpose and with alignment, somebody who's transmuted their suffering into their greatest strength. So what you do for yourself, you can do for others. So God bless you, sister. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.